night was quiet, too quiet, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. In the distance, the broken remains of a crashed vessel lay scattered across the ground, pieces of twisted metal shining under the pale moonlight. Among the ruins, something moved, not a machine, not a beast but a girl. Her clothes were torn, covered in dust and ash. Her skin had strange glowing marks. Like fading trails of fire across her arms, she staggered forward, barefoot, every step heavy as if she carried an invisible weight. Her eyes were wide and lost. She looked around but found no familiar shape, no friendly face, no memory of who she was. The air was cold, filled with the smell of burnt wires and smoke. She coughed, her throat dry, her stomach aching with hunger. She searched the ruins, hoping to find food or water, but only broken parts and shadows greeted her. Every sound made her heart race. The creak of metal, the whisper of the wind, the distant howl of something alive. Then came the growl, low and sharp. It echoed from behind the wreckage. Her body froze, fear rushing through her veins. From the darkness, pairs of glowing eyes appeared. Dogs, or creatures like dogs, their bodies lean, fur dirty. Teeth shining under the moon, they stepped closer, circling her. Their growls deep and dangerous. She stumbled back. Pressing her hands to her chest, she expected them to attack, to tear her apart in seconds. Instead, the largest of them sniffed the air and stopped. The others waited, tense and restless. The leader tilted its head and moved closer. Its nose touched her hand, and in that strange moment, the growl turned into a soft whine. The girl held her breath, confused. The dog licked her dirty fingers. Its eyes seemed to recognize something she could not. Then another dog lowered its head, and another followed. Soon the whole pack surrounded her, not as hunters, but as protectors. She sank to the ground, her weak body trembling. But the dogs did not harm her. They lay around her like a living wall, their warmth pushing back the night's cold. She tried to speak, but no voice came out, only a whisper of breath. Her mind was blank, empty of name or past. All she knew was this moment: stray dogs, a ruined ship, and a sky full of strange stars she did not remember. Days passed in silence. She walked with the pack, crawling through ruins, searching for scraps of food. Sometimes she ate what they hunted, sometimes they shared bones. At night, she slept against their fur, listening to their steady breathing. They were wild, dangerous, feared by villagers. But to her they were the only family she knew. From far away, people whispered. They told stories of a ghost child who lived with beasts. Some said she was cursed. Others claimed she was the spirit of the dead ship. None dared to approach her, for whenever someone tried, the dogs growled like thunder, ready to defend her. But inside her heart, a storm was building. Dreams haunted her. She saw fire. She saw people screaming. She saw hands reaching out before everything turned to black. She woke in terror, clutching her chest. The dogs whined and pressed closer, calming her with their warmth. Yet the dreams returned again and again. The girl did not know who she was, but deep inside she felt a hole, an emptiness so large it hurt. She felt that someone somewhere had lost her, and that she too had lost herself one evening. When the red sun was dying behind the mountains, she climbed a hill near the ruins. From there she could see the road, long and lonely, cutting through the land. A figure walked there, small in the distance, moving slowly but steadily toward the ruins. She narrowed her eyes, trying to see. The dogs growled low, sensing something new, something different. The figure kept walking, carrying a bag on his shoulder. His steps were heavy, but there was no fear in them. He was heading toward her world, toward the ruins, toward the pack, toward her. The girl's heart raced. She did not know why, but something told her this stranger would change everything. The night fell again, but this time it did not feel the same. The ruins were no longer silent. The air was no longer still. For the first time since the mishap, something alive was coming. Not beast, not shadow, but a man. And deep inside her empty memory, a spark of hope flickered, though she did not yet understand why. The morning sun rose slowly, painting the ruins in a dull golden light. The girl sat quietly on a broken stone, her bare feet resting on the cold earth. Around her, the dogs stretched and yawned, their fur catching the warmth of the sun. They were her companions now, her guardians, her only family. She did not remember where she came from, but she remembered hunger, cold, and fear, and how these creatures had given her shelter when no one else would. At first she had thought they might kill her. She had seen their sharp teeth, their glowing eyes in the dark, yet they did not tear her apart. Instead, they circled her, tested her, then welcomed her into their pack as though she belonged. She could not understand why, but she accepted it, for she had no other choice. She learned their ways quickly. She moved when they moved, rested when they rested, and searched for food when they searched. When the leader growled, she froze. When he barked, she followed. The pack had a rhythm, a silent order, and she became a part of it. Her stomach was often empty, but the dogs shared scraps. Sometimes they dragged pieces of rotten meat from the ruins. Sometimes they hunted small creatures in the night. She gagged at first, but hunger pushed her to eat. Slowly, her body grew stronger. Though her memory stayed broken, she began to notice small things about them. The leader had scars across his snout, proof of battles fought. One of the younger dogs limped, its leg twisted, yet it still kept up with the group. Another had strange white fur shining against the rest of the pack. She felt closer to them because each one carried a story, just as she must carry one, though hers was hidden in the fog of her mind. When danger came, the pack stood like a wall once. Scavengers from the nearby village tried to chase her away. They threw stones, shouting that she was cursed. The dogs roared in anger, their teeth bared. Their growls shook the ground. The men fled in fear, never daring to return. The girl watched in silence, heart pounding. She had never asked the dogs to protect her, yet they did in the evenings. She would sit by the ruins while the pack hunted. She looked at the broken ship, touched the metal, and felt something stir inside her chest. Flashes of light, voices she could not place, a hand reaching for her before everything went dark. The memories came in pieces, like broken glass that cut her when she tried to hold on. She cried sometimes, not knowing why. The dogs licked her hands, pressed their bodies against hers, and in their warmth she found comfort. Days turned into weeks. She learned the sounds of the pack. A sharp bark meant danger, a whine meant hunger, a howl meant loss. Sometimes she joined their howls, her voice echoing across the valley. For a moment, she felt less human and more like them. For a moment, she felt she belonged. But even in this strange family, the emptiness did not leave. When she looked at the stars, her heart ached. She wondered if someone out there was searching for her, or if she was already forgotten. The dogs could not answer. They gave her love, but not the truth. And the truth was what she needed most one afternoon. As she followed the pack deeper into the ruins, she saw something unusual. A burned piece of cloth tangled in the rubble. She picked it up, brushing away the ash. The pattern was strange yet familiar. Her heart skipped a beat. Was this hers? Did it belong to her family? But before she could think, the dogs barked sharply, pulling her attention away. A shadow moved between the ruins, too fast to see clearly. The pack formed a circle around her. Growling, she clutched the cloth tightly, fear rising. The shadow vanished, leaving only silence. That night she lay awake, the cloth pressed against her chest. She stared at the glowing eyes of her protectors and wondered, was someone watching her? Did they know who she was? The dogs shifted uneasily, ears twitching as if they sensed the same unseen danger. For the first time since the mishap, the girl realized the pack might not be enough to keep her safe. Something bigger was coming, something that wanted her found. Yet deep inside, she also felt another presence. The memory of the man she had seen on the road, a stranger walking steadily toward the ruins. She wondered if he was close now, if he would appear tomorrow, and if he did, would the dogs trust him or see him as another enemy? She pulled the cloth tighter and closed her eyes. The ruins creaked under the cold wind. The pack pressed close, guarding her from the darkness. But even surrounded by their warmth, she could not escape the feeling that her life was about to change. The sun was sinking behind the hills, its fading light spilling across the ruins like fire. The girl crouched near the pack, chewing on a scrap of meat the dogs had found. Her hands were dirty, her hair tangled, her face pale. Around her, the dogs shifted restlessly, ears twitching, eyes scanning the distance. They sensed something before she did. From the far road, a figure appeared, small at first, but slowly growing clearer. He was a man, tall and strong, carrying a heavy bag on his back. His clothes were torn by travel, dust clinging to every fold, yet his steps were steady, his eyes fixed on the ruins as though he had been searching for this place all along. The dogs growled, their bodies stiff. The girl followed their gaze, her heart racing. She remembered the glimpse she had caught days ago, the same figure walking on the horizon. Now he was here, closer, real. She clutched the burned piece of cloth she had found in the rubble, holding it like a charm against danger. The man stopped at the edge of the ruins. His eyes scanned the wreckage, then fell on the pack of dogs. He saw their sharp teeth, their glowing eyes, their bodies tense and ready to strike. But his gaze did not hold fear. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of bread. Slowly, carefully, he set it on the ground and stepped back. The leader of the pack growled, its body low, muscles tight, but the smell of food carried through the wind. One of the younger dogs whined, stepping forward. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Would they attack him or take his offering? The man did not move. His hand stayed open, his eyes calm. He waited, patient, as though he understood the wild creatures in front of him. Finally, the youngest pup darted forward, grabbed the bread and retreated. The pack watched. Then one by one they lowered their growls. Though still wary, they did not strike. The girl watched all of this with wide eyes. No one had ever dared to approach her and the dogs. Villagers always ran in fear, yet this stranger stood his ground. Not with weapons, but with kindness. Her heart pounded as she tried to understand, who was he? Why had he come here? The man spoke then, his voice low and steady. The words were human, soft and clear. She did not understand every sound, but the tone reached her. It was not threat, not anger, but something gentler. The dogs tilted their heads, listening. The girl hugged her knees tighter. Uncertain night crept in, the man did not leave. He built a small fire at a distance, not too close to the pack, but not too far either. The flames flickered, casting shadows across his face. He tore more bread into pieces and placed them on the ground. Again, the youngest dog darted forward. The others followed slowly, step by step. Drawn by the warmth and the smell, the girl felt torn inside. Her mind screamed to stay hidden, to trust only the pack. But her heart whispered something different, something she could not name. She rose from her place, her bare feet brushing against cold stones. The cloth still clutched in her hand, she stepped closer, the dogs moving with her like shadows. The man's eyes widened slightly when he saw her. His face softened. The firelight revealed something in his gaze, pity, sorrow, and a strange spark of recognition. He spoke again, this time softer, almost a whisper. The girl froze. Her body trembling, she did not know him. Yet his voice stirred something deep in her chest. One of the older dogs barked, breaking the moment. The pack shifted. Forming a wall around her, the man did not move. He lowered his gaze, showing respect. Then he placed his last piece of bread on the stone and slowly lay back against the ruins. Closing his eyes, he was not afraid. He trusted the night to keep him safe. The girl could not sleep, she kept watching him. Her thoughts tangled. If he meant harm, he would have tried by now if he wanted to hurt her. The dogs would never let him live. Yet he only offered food, fire, and silence. She remembered her dreams, voices, fire, hands reaching for her. Maybe this man held the answers. Maybe he carried a piece of the life she had forgotten. But trust was heavy, and her heart had been empty for so long. As the moon climbed higher, the pack curled around her, their warmth pressing close. Still her gaze remained on the stranger. His face calm, his breathing steady. Like one who carried both pain and patience, something inside her shifted. A spark of curiosity lit in her heart. She did not know it yet. But this meeting would change everything. The girl of the ruins and the man of the road. Two broken lives about to cross. And in the silence of the night, the ruins whispered of the future. The morning sun rose slowly over the ruins, its light cutting through the cold mist. The girl opened her eyes to see the stranger still there, sitting by the ashes of his small fire he had not left, not even when the pack growled through the night. His presence was calm, steady, as if he had been waiting for something. The dogs stood watch, their eyes never leaving him. The leader growled whenever he shifted, but he never raised a hand against them. Instead, he tore a piece of dried food from his bag and tossed it gently on the ground. The smallest pup ran forward, grabbing it before the others could. Then the man smiled, a tired but warm smile. The girl's stomach ached, hunger biting at her again. She looked at the food, then at him. She wanted to step forward, but her legs felt heavy. Her trust was like a locked door, and she did not know if she could open it. Still, the smell of the bread lingered in the air. Soft and inviting, the man noticed her hesitation. He did not call out or try to force her closer. Instead, he tore another piece of bread and placed it on the stone nearest to her. Then he backed away, keeping his hands open. Showing he meant no harm, the dogs moved first, sniffing the piece carefully when none found danger. The girl finally reached out with trembling fingers and picked it up. The taste was rough and dry, but to her it was sweeter than anything she had eaten in weeks. Her heart raced as she chewed, eyes never leaving the stranger. For the first time, she felt something unusual, a spark of safety. His voice came softly again, low and steady. He spoke in words she barely understood, but the tone was enough. He was not an enemy, not a hunter, but someone trying to reach her. Days passed like this. The man did not leave. He kept his distance, yet slowly worked closer. He offered food to the dogs, treated their wounds with herbs from his bag, and never once lifted a hand in anger. The pack began to shift. Their growls became softer, their eyes less sharp. They watched him with curiosity instead of rage. The girl observed it all. Her fear slowly bent into something else, curiosity. She saw how he touched the injured leg of the limping dog, wrapping it gently with cloth. She saw how he shared his own water when they were thirsty. And when the youngest pup licked his hand, she felt her heart move in ways she could not explain. One evening, as the sky turned red with the dying sun, the man sat near the ruins, humming softly. The tune was strange, a melody that seemed to carry warmth in the cold air. The girl found herself drawn closer step by step, until she stood only a few feet away. The dogs surrounded her, watchful but calm. The man lifted his eyes to meet hers. He did not smile this time. He only nodded slowly, as though he understood her silence. Then he spoke a single word, his voice cracked. Filled with something heavy, she tilted her head, the word touching a hidden corner of her memory. She did not answer. She could not, but her heart beat louder. Something about him was familiar, though she did not know why. That night she dreamed again, fire screaming voices, hands pulling her away, but this time, the image of the man appeared in her dream, his face blurred, but his voice the same calm tone she had heard. She woke in the middle of the night, her breath fast. The dogs whined, pressing close to her, but her eyes drifted toward the stranger who slept nearby. The bond was forming, silent yet strong. He did not ask for her trust. He earned it little by little. Through kindness, through patience, through silence, the girl began to follow him with her eyes, watching how he moved, how he handled the ruins as if they were sacred ground. He studied the broken ship, his hand brushing the metal with care. She wondered if he knew more than he showed. One afternoon, when she stumbled on a sharp rock, cutting her foot, she winced in pain. The dogs barked, restless. The man rushed forward, not with fear, but with worry in his eyes. He kneeled. Gently lifting her foot in his hands, she tried to pull away, but his grip was careful, respectful. He tore cloth from his own sleeve and wrapped the wound, tying it firm but not too tight. Her breath caught. Her chest felt heavy. It was not just kindness, it was care, something she had long forgotten. She looked into his eyes, searching for answers. But all she saw was a man who wanted to help. The pack stayed close, watching, but they no longer growled. Even the leader remained silent, eyes steady but not hostile. It was as if the bond between girl and man was spreading to them as well. That evening she sat near him by the fire, still silent, still unsure. But when he handed her half of his bread, she did not hesitate this time. She took it. Their hands brushing for the briefest moment, a spark passed between them, small but undeniable. The bond of trust had begun, fragile as glass, yet stronger than the silence of fear. And though neither of them knew it yet, this trust would be tested by shadows soon to come. The nights grew longer, colder, yet the bond between the girl and the man grew warmer. She no longer hid behind the pack all the time. Sometimes she sat closer to his fire, her eyes following his every move. Sometimes she accepted food from his hand without fear. The dogs had stopped growling at him. They lay nearby, watching but calm, as though they had accepted him as part of their world. But while her heart grew lighter, her dreams grew darker. Each night she was haunted by flashes of fire and screams, shadows of people she did not fully remember, their faces blurred, their voices muffled. Yet the fear was real. She woke trembling. Clutching her chest, the dogs pressed against her, and the man sat quietly nearby, waiting for her breathing to steady. One night the dream was sharper. She saw a woman's face, kind yet terrified. The woman shouted her name, but the sound was lost in the roar of an explosion. Then hands dragged her through smoke. She reached out, but the vision collapsed into darkness. She woke with tears in her eyes, gasping for breath. The man touched her shoulder gently, his voice low, but she shook her head. Unable to explain, she had no words, only fear. The next day, while wandering near the deeper part of the ruins, She found a broken shard of glass, its edges cracked. But in the reflection she saw something. A faint mark on her forehead glowing softly in the sunlight. She touched it, and memories flickered again. Soldiers' fire, shouting. Someone had been chasing her. Someone wanted her gone. She dropped the shard, her hand shaking. The dogs barked nervously, sensing her distress. The man rushed toward her. His eyes sharp with concern, she pointed to the mark. But he already seemed to know. His face darkened. As though he had expected this moment, he whispered words she did not understand. But the sadness in his tone was clear. That night the fire burned low. The girl stared into the flames. Her chest was heavy with confusion. Why had she been left alive? Why had she lost her memory? Who had wanted to erase her past? She glanced at the man who sat quietly with the pack. His eyes looked far away, as if he too carried shadows of his own. The dogs stirred suddenly, ears perked, growls rising. The man stood quickly, his hand on a hidden knife at his belt. The girl's heart jumped. From the edge of the ruins, faint lights flickered, not from fire, not from stars, but from lanterns voices carried in the wind. Rough searching? The man motioned for silence. He pushed the girl gently behind the dogs. The pack formed a circle, their bodies stiff, their teeth bared. The voices drew nearer. She could hear words now, cold and sharp. Find her. The girl must be alive. Check the ruins. Her blood froze. They were looking for her, but why? The man's eyes burned with urgency. He crouched low, whispering in a tone that carried both warning and promise. She did not understand all the words, but she understood the meaning. Stay hidden. Stay quiet. Trust him. The strangers passed close, their shadows long under the moon. The girl trembled, clutching the burned cloth she always carried. The dogs growled softly, ready to attack if needed. The man held them back with a steady hand, waiting, breathing slow for a moment. One of the hunters paused, his lantern swinging across the ground. The light caught the girl's pale face. She froze, heart pounding, but before he could see clearly, the man threw a stone into the darkness. The sound echoed, sharp and sudden. The hunters turned, rushing toward the noise. The pack stayed low, silent as the grave. Minutes passed. Heavy as hours, finally, the voices faded into the distance, the lantern lights shrinking until only the stars remained. The girl collapsed to her knees, her body shaking. The man crouched beside her. His eyes serious, he spoke quickly now, words strong and clear. He pointed at the mark on her forehead, then at the ruins, then at the road where the strangers had come. Her breath came fast, but slowly the meaning sank into her heart. They were after her, not the ruins, not the dogs, but her. Tears blurred her eyes. She shook her head. She did not want this truth. She wanted her memory to stay lost, but deep inside, she knew she could not run from it forever. The man placed a hand on her shoulder, steady, firm. His gaze held no fear, only determination. The dogs pressed against her sides, growling softly as if promising to fight for her. In that moment, she realized she was not alone. Even if shadows from her past came hunting, she had a new family now, a bond that would not break easily, but the danger was real. Her memory was returning piece by piece, and with it came the heavy truth. Someone powerful wanted her gone. Someone would not stop until she was found. The fire crackled weakly, throwing sparks into the night sky. She stared at the flames, whispering the only question in her heart. Who am I? And though the night gave no answer, the shadows of her past whispered louder than ever. The night after the hunters came was restless. The girl could not sleep. Every sound in the ruins made her heart jump. The dogs stayed close, their eyes glowing in the dark. But even their presence could not erase her fear. The man sat awake beside the fire, sharpening his knife with slow, steady movements. His eyes never rested when dawn came. The world felt heavier. The man spoke few words, but his hands moved with purpose. He packed his bag tighter, checked his blade, and looked toward the distant hills as though expecting danger. The girl watched him carefully. She wanted to ask him questions about who she was, about the mark on her head, about the hunters, but the words would not come. Only silence filled her throat. The dogs sensed it too. Their movements were tense, their growls sharper, as if they knew the threat was not far behind. By midday, the sound of boots echoed again. The hunters had returned, this time closer, stronger. The man's face hardened. He motioned for the girl to stay behind the pack. But she did not want to hide. Fear and anger burned inside her. For weeks she had lived with shadows, running from nightmares. Now the nightmares were real. Walking on two legs, carrying weapons, the hunters stormed into the ruins. Shouting orders, their eyes searched every corner. The dogs roared in defiance, forming a wall around the girl. The hunters raised their spears. But before they could strike, the man stepped forward. His voice thundered in a language they understood, commanding them to leave, warning them to stop. But the hunters laughed. They called him a fool. They said the girl was dangerous, cursed, and must be taken. Their leader pointed his weapon toward her. Her chest tightened, she could not move. But the man did. He rushed forward, his knife flashing. The first clash was loud. Steel against steel, the dogs leapt into the fight, snapping and biting, chaos filling the ruins. The girl screamed, reaching out, but her voice was lost in the roar of battle. The man fought with fury, every strike filled with the fire of someone protecting what mattered most. She watched in horror as he bled, a cut slicing across his arm. Another hunter swung at him, but the man dodged and countered. The dogs dragged one enemy down, their teeth tearing into his armor. Another hunter fell back under the man's blade. Still more came forward. The girl's heart pounded like thunder, her vision blurred. And then it happened. Memories returned, faces, names. Her family screaming as soldiers set fire to their home. She remembered being carried away, hidden, protected because of who she was. Her family was noble, her people hunted. She was not cursed, she was wanted. Tears streamed down her face. She realized the hunters were not liars. They truly wanted her, not because she was evil, but because she was a survivor of something greater. The man fell to one knee, his strength faltering. The leader of the hunters raised his weapon to strike him down. In that instant, the girl's fear turned into something stronger. She ran forward, placing herself between them, her arms spread wide, her voice rising for the first time in weeks. "Stop!" The hunters froze. Shocked by her sudden courage, the dogs barked wildly, circling her. The man looked up, his face pale but his eyes burning with pride. The girl stood tall, trembling but unbroken. For the first time, she chose not to run. She shouted again, her words broken but strong. "I am not yours, I am not cursed. I am me." Her voice echoed through the ruins. Carried by the wind, the hunters hesitated, unease spreading through their ranks. The girl stepped closer to the man, helping him rise. His blood stained her hands, but she did not care. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering, "I stay with you." The hunters saw the fire in her eyes and the loyalty of the pack around her. They retreated slowly, muttering threats, promising they would return. But they did not dare strike again that day. Not against a girl who had found her voice. Not against a man and a pack that would die for her. When silence returned, the girl collapsed beside the man. Her tears wet his sleeve. He touched her face gently, whispering words she barely understood. But she knew the meaning. She had made her choice. Not to live in fear of the past, but to live in the bond she had found. The ruins were still broken, the sky still heavy with danger. But something new had been born that day. The choice of love, a love that was not soft or easy, but fierce, protective, and unyielding. She looked into his eyes, then at the dogs, and for the first time she felt whole. No longer the lost girl of the ruins, but someone who had chosen her own path. The past would not stop chasing her. She knew that, but with the man beside her, and the pack guarding her, she no longer feared it. For love had given her strength, and with that strength she could face the shadows. The ruins stood silent again, broken walls glowing under the pale moon. The hunters were gone, their threat still hanging in the air. But for now, peace returned. The girl sat close to the man, his arm wrapped in cloth, his face tired but alive. The dogs rested around them, some limping, some wounded, yet all still breathing. They had fought as a family and survived as one. The girl looked at the man, her eyes full of questions she could not speak. He met her gaze with quiet strength. His hand, rough and scarred, brushed her cheek. His touch was gentle, careful, as if she was made of glass. For a moment she closed her eyes, leaning into his hand, feeling warmth she had not felt since before her memory was lost. In her dreams, the shadows of her past still whispered. Faces called her name, fire burned, screams echoed. But when she woke, she saw him beside her, and the pack curled around her. Slowly, the fear lessened. Slowly, the weight of loneliness lifted, days turned into weeks. The man taught her small things, how to light a fire, how to gather food, how to heal small wounds with herbs. She listened carefully, Her silence no longer empty but full of trust. Sometimes she tried to repeat his words, broken and halting, but his smile told her that every sound she made mattered. The dogs followed them everywhere. They were no longer just guardians, but companions on a journey. Together they walked beyond the ruins, through forests and empty fields, searching for safety, searching for a place to begin again. The world was dangerous, yet she did not fear it anymore. Because she was no longer alone, villagers who once whispered of a cursed child now looked with different eyes. They saw her walking beside a man who stood strong despite his scars. They saw the dogs that had once been feared now walking calmly at her side. Some still kept their distance, but others nodded respectfully. A few even offered food, seeing not a ghost child but a survivor. The girl felt something grow inside her heart. Pride. For so long she had been lost, nameless, empty. Now she was more than just a memory of pain. She was someone who could choose. Someone who could walk forward one evening. As the sun dipped low and painted the sky in colors of fire, the man sat beside her on a hill. The pack lay scattered around them, their bodies warm against the grass. He pointed toward the horizon, his voice low, speaking words she did not fully understand. But she caught enough to know what he meant: a new home, a new life waiting ahead. Her chest tightened, not with fear but with hope. She turned to him, her hand brushing his. For the first time she whispered softly, "I stay with you." The words were broken, but they carried her soul. His eyes widened, then softened. He nodded once, strong and certain. That night under the stars, she did not dream of fire or screams. She dreamed of light, of running freely with the pack, of laughter she had not yet known but longed for. In her dream she saw herself not as a lost child, but as part of a family. The next morning, they left the ruins behind. The girl turned once to look back. The broken ship stood like a skeleton against the rising sun, a reminder of pain and loss. Yet she no longer felt chained to it. The ruins were her past, but not her prison. Step by step, she walked forward. The dogs padded around her. The man walked beside her, and together they moved into the unknown. Every breath of wind, every sound of leaves, every distant star above felt like a promise. She had been the girl who lost everything. She had survived with stray dogs. She had lived in fear and silence, but now she was more. She was a daughter of survival, a child of courage, and most of all, she was loved. The hunters would return one day. The past would never truly disappear, but she no longer feared it, because she had found something stronger than memory, stronger than fear. She had found family, trust, and love, and with those, she knew she could face any shadow that tried to claim her again.